Evening all. So here we have the latest 8 p.m. Periscope. So hope this one is coming through to you all loud and clear. And as you can see, I'm in a somewhat somewhat different location. But hey, the sun is shining, so it's a lovely evening. So how better than to spend 30 minutes discussing politics? So good evening to everybody. Thank you for coming along to the 8 p.m. Periscope. Usual routine, folks. Hi Arnhem Avenger. Hi Shrimpy. Hi gang. Usual routine. Hit the heart buttons as frequently as you can. If you've got super hearts, hit those or send those. And of course, just as importantly, watch out for the trolls. And the trolls these days are pretty much called Twitter. So it's going to be difficult, isn't it? Anyway, thanks Chris, and thanks Shrimpy for the, and Jeanette, thanks for boom, 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 3 super hearts in a row. Anyway, we're going to discuss a couple of things this evening, really. I want to keep this one real specific, because yesterday and today mark a number of anniversaries. Today, of course, is the first anniversary of the Manchester Arena bombing. It also is the 5th anniversary of the slaughter of Lee Rigby. Yesterday saw the Grenfell Tower tragedy being marked as well, with the inquiry. So yes, Jeff, my official timekeeper, you're getting a glimpse of my garden in the background. So these are kind of, I think, all really quite important things. Oh, thanks for the hearts. Please retweet this onto your own timelines. Let's get as many people coming along, because Twitter doesn't want them to come and see me, hear me. So maybe you can help by encouraging people to come and hear me. Hi, Frog in Hot Water. Again, you're all welcome. So really, I want, in the conservatory, in the sunroom, actually, Mike, that's where I am tonight. It's lovely and warm, so very pleasant for me. Hope it's as pleasant for you, wherever you are. So I wanted to talk about green bins soon, must cut the grass. I actually have to cut my own grass, so you're right. Chris is saying Twitter won't let him retweet my Periscope. That doesn't surprise me. Twitter are basically a bunch of Nazis. Oh, gosh, did I say that? That was a touch of the Ken Livingstones, wasn't it? Anyway, moving on. And this is a serious topic. And the topic is the fact that today does mark 1 year on from Salman Abedi exploded himself in the Manchester Arena, killing 22 innocent people. And hi Miss Katja, and hi all. That happened a year ago. I can still remember it, actually. I remember the news coming in of something had happened at the Ariana Grande concert in Manchester. I remember the media at the time, so on social media, people were saying it's stuff like, it's probably a speaker had exploded, or it was a firework had gone off. And it was perfectly obvious that it was neither. And of course, as the night went on, that's interesting. Screenshot on my timeline. I've asked them to confirm it's not fake. Yeah. John's right. A nation that cannot get angry about the slaughter of its own children is doomed. And this is essentially the point that I've written. I don't know if you saw my article over in Alt News Media, but I entitled it, "Do Look Back in Anger." Because all we've had on the anniversary of this slaughter of innocents in Manchester is a kind of curious response, which I think at one point the BBC referred to it as an accident. What? It wasn't an accident. And in the second instance, it was, this was a terrorist attack. This was jihad. If you see the article I've written, I've talked about the fact that Salman Abedi, whose parents were asylum seekers from Libya. Now, last time I looked on a map, the UK isn't the next most obvious country geographically to Libya. So, they parasited themselves here in the UK. And then when Gaddafi fell in 2011, they moved back to Libya. he moved back, obviously, with them, and he seemed to go back and forth between Libya and the UK. And if you notice, thanks Gaza 52 for your super heart. And if you actually reflect on the real story here, it's very different to what the media are telling us. The real story is that this militant Islamic radical was able to come in and out, even though he was young. He was able to come in and out of the UK seemingly at will. He attended a mosque which is pretty notorious for allowing hate preachers, as a consequence of which he appeared to become radicalised, and then he went and slaughtered people and himself in the process. And the media's response to this a year on has been to have a sing-along and to have the Don't Look Back in Anger sing-along. And I'm sorry, I can appreciate some people may feel comfort from that, but it won't stop it. And of course, for those people who have lost family or who know people who were lost, I fully can sympathise with anything that gives them comfort. That's absolutely fine by me. But according to Chris is saying, according to Andy Burnham, now Mayor of Manchester, we have more to fear from the far right than radical Islam. But it wasn't the far right that took 22 lives, innocent lives, at the Manchester Arena 1 year ago, was it? It was radical Islam. Hi Matt, it was radical Islam that did it, and yet it appears to me that too many are afraid to actually even say this. We mustn't speak the obvious. We should be angry about what happened in Manchester. We should be asking ourselves, how come our border control system allowed a Beatty to come in and out of the UK? How come the mosque that he attended in Manchester wasn't closed down? And this is these are some of the fundamental questions that aren't being addressed. And the consequence of that, of course, has been, as you've seen in the past year, you've seen the fact that I think we've welcomed back 400 hardened, trained jihadi from Libya into the UK. That's like 400 more Salman Abedis that we've voluntarily welcomed back. I mean, who on earth thinks that's a good idea? On top of that, MI5 said that they're monitoring 3,000 suspected radical Islamists, all capable of committing acts as vile as those carried out by Abedi. So the irony is here that we've got this massive problem, and the solution to the massive problem from the establishment point of view is to deny that it exists. And of course, you'll be able to measure the response, the success or otherwise of that strategy in body bags. And I think that's pretty deplorable, that more lives will be lost because our authorities refuse to face up to the fact. Oh, thanks, Mikesy, for your super heart. Appreciate that. That our authorities refuse to face up to the fact that radical Islam is like a cancer in the heart of our society. It constitutes as big a threat to Muslim people as it does to Christian, as it does to atheists, as it does to all people. And Matt's right, the government are focusing on things like banning wood burners rather than deporting these foreign criminals. That's absolutely right, Matt. But the difficulty we have in this one is the denialism that lies at the heart of government's policy. And that's reflected by our absolutely useless MSM, the mainstream media. I mean, their coverage of this has been cloyingly awful. And of course, if you say that sing-songs won't stop Islamic terror, then you're painted as the bad guy. So how does this one actually end in a good way? I don't think that it can. The only way this will end is if we get tough on the causes of radical Islam, if we close down the hate mosques, if we deport those who would come to our country and preach violence against our fellow citizens, and if we hunt down every terrorist out there and bring them to justice one way or the other. Is that not a perfectly reasonable strategy? And yet tell me this, name one politician that you've heard who said that. one mainstream politician. They don't exist, do they? They want to solve it by singing "Don't Look Back in Anger," lighting candles, having sad vigils. None of that will. And you're right, Shrimpy. I know it won't happen. So then let's move on to the next point. If this doesn't happen, if we don't respond to it, what are we going to get? I think we're going to get much more of it. I think the government will need to order greater quantities of body bags, because that's the consequence is more people will die, more innocent people will lose their lives, because we've got a government, in fact a political class, because not just the Conservative government, Labour is obviously as bad, if probably worse, and Lib Dems is similarly. They don't want to accept that the real cause of what happened in Manchester 1 year ago was radical Islam, and the failure of our government to confront it, to defeat it, to erase it. If we aren't prepared to do that, then quite frankly, the only way forward is going to be more deaths, more public sing-alongs. And I don't think that's going to be, I'm really not sure that's going to be a successful strategy. Do you? And it's not, of course, just Manchester Arena where we've seen the problem, because obviously today marks 5 years ago. It's very sad. Fusilier Lee Rigby lost his life in Woolwich in London. Obviously, we all remember what happened when two Muslim converts essentially decapitated him on the main streets of our capital city. And Fusilier Rigby had absolutely no chance. Absolutely appalling incident. And again, this has been sanitised, because the two individuals that killed him boasted on camera at the time that they did so because they were following instructions from the Quran. So no matter how you call this one, folks, it was perfectly clear that Lee Rigby was killed by radical Islamists, and the people in Manchester were killed by radical Islamists. It's a common theme, and it's a common denial by authorities who really would prefer that we didn't talk about these things. And in actual fact, thanks Jeff for the time check. This is kind of going to be constantly on this theme, because I want to nail this theme once and for all. So like the reality. Sorry, folks, I'm just trying to balance this because my hands are sore. So the reality is that just as the government wants to deny the reality of the motivations of those who slaughtered Fusilier Rigby, they would deny the motivation of the individual who slaughtered the people at in Manchester. Now, why do you think government has adopted this approach? Is it because government is scared? Is it because government essentially has given up the fight? Is it because government feels that it can't win? And, hi Stevie Wonder in Tenerife. Didn't see you, Stevie, at the royal wedding, by the way. And there were so many other Hollywood A-listers there. So, by the way, if there's any trolls on the Periscope, do let me know, folks. I'm not sure about some of the comments there that are coming through from one individual. Remember, I do not discriminate against anyone on the basis of race or indeed anything else. I judge people as individuals, as I think we all should do. But I also recognise terrorism for what it is. And in this case, we're fighting a battle against terrorism that we don't identify as terrorism. That's a real problem as far as I can see. Oh, thanks, by the way, for all those hearts that are flying up. Appreciate it. I like the real glitzy waving hand one, by the way, whoever did that. That's very clever. So Matt doesn't want to talk about the royal wedding. I don't want to talk about it either. I think I've said enough on the royal wedding on Twitter. But back on topic. So we have this peculiar situation where today we're marking the deaths of so many people at the hands of radical Islam, and we refuse to talk about radical Islam. And that is a major, major problem that this country is going to regret. And as I say, I think when you look right across the political class, and I include people like Jacob Rees-Mogg in this criticism, they have also failed to stand up and speak out and call it for what it is. No one is seeking to demonise all Muslim people. Absolutely not. All we're saying is that there is a major threat from radical Islamists. Jed didn't get the notification. I'm not surprised. Twitter, each time I try to do this, it kind of fails. But I'll come on to actually Alt News. A&M Radio launches on Friday, so I'm going to talk to you about that towards the end, because I think what I'll do is in future. Well, I'll tell you what the plan is. I'll tell you in a couple of minutes. Manchester Arena, Lee Rigby. Actually, it's kind of sad that there's just so much deceit, so much denial, and ultimately there will be so much more. Yes, politicians wishing happy Ramadan. Well, I'm really not sure what to do, what to say. Nobody said every Muslim, but it's a problem in the Muslim community, says SN Yates. You're absolutely right. I like your bald, says someone. What do you mean I'm bald? I've got a full head of hair. Can't you see it? Glinting in the sunlight. And this is the fact. We're not demonising any one group, but what we are saying is that radical Islam slaughtered people on the streets of Woolwich 5 years ago today. It slaughtered people at Manchester Arena 1 year ago today, and it will keep slaughtering unless we actually take firm action. And that's my belief. I think we need to be much more clear in the fact that we will close down, as I say, the mosques, deport the hate, the mosques that preach hate, that we will deport the hate preachers. And as I've said, and as I think Shrimpy said earlier, there's probably no chance of that happening. So if that doesn't happen, the consequence is there will be more. You will count the bodies and the funerals. And that's the reality of that situation. Now, of course, it's not just Manchester and Woolwich, Lee Rigby, that has been kind of marked this week, because we saw the Grenfell situation, the Grenfell inquiry open. And there is a contrast here, is there not? Because when it comes to Manchester and Lee Rigby, we're told to don't look back in anger, move on, forget it. Just move to the future. Don't focus on the past. But when it comes to Grenfell, we're not allowed to forget anything, are we? And that raises some disturbing questions, as in, obviously I appreciate the fact that those people who lost their lives at Grenfell, it was a horrendous situation, a horrendous inferno, and all innocent life, all life lost in Grenfell is to be deeply regretted. I regret all of that. I also regret the fact that in the aftermath of it, the government has chosen to, for example, facilitate the lawbreakers who were illegally subletting, and to facilitate those illegal immigrants who were present and living in Grenfell Tower. Since when did two wrongs make a right? I fear that's exactly what's happening with this Grenfell situation. And the other thing about Grenfell that makes me wonder is, why is nobody seemingly so concerned about who started it? What started it? Was it Fridge Man? I mean, was it as someone said, was it the Ethiopian fridge guy? Will he be called to give evidence to the inquiry? It seems strange that we had so much talk about the cladding, and there may well be lessons to be learned in terms of how that could have been done better in ways that could have perhaps limited the spread of the fire and saved lives. That would have been fine, but something started it, folks. It just wasn't spontaneous combustion. And it would be very interesting to know exactly who did start it, where it actually started, and what actually started it. And yet, nobody's too bothered about that. It's more an exercise to beat the government over the head, to beat the Conservatives over the head, to beat capitalism over the head. And here's the truth. Here's the unwelcome truth. Grenfell has been weaponised by the left. Do you agree? I think it has. I think that the left have been all over this as an example of the uncaring face of capitalism. It's nothing of the sort. It's nothing to do with capitalism. I mean, someone's Spike's asking the question. I mean, just how? Yes, I agree with some of your comments. Are great here, by the way. Why doesn't the government put as much effort into fighting radical Islam as it does into Grenfell? I mean, we have Theresa May and her ministers falling over each other who can virtue signal the most about Grenfell. But again, I think John's right. It may well prove that an illegal immigrant may have started the fire. But that's been absolutely taken off the agenda. And Surrey 30, you're right. It is being used to create a bit of racial conflict. You only have to look at the inhabitants of not just Grenfell Tower, but many other tower blocks in London to wonder just exactly what is going on in these council buildings. The other thing that's strange is that the media keep talking about the fact that even a year on, so many of those affected, and of course we can't quite be sure how many were affected, because we seem to have more families now claiming for relocation than they were listed as inhabitants of Grenfell Tower. How does that work? And when these people have been offered, for example, some of these are the survivors I'm talking about, have been offered reasonably luxurious accommodation in other parts of the UK, they refuse to take them. Diane Abbott and David Lammy, sorry, I almost confused them, have been to the fore in weaponising, and as far as I can see, almost one could be forgiven for thinking they're using the deaths of these poor people to kind of score points. We shouldn't be trying to score points. All sensible people will agree that obviously such fires must be prevented. I remember when I was a child many years ago, there was a terrible fire. It happened at a place, it was in the Isle of Man, at a place called Summerland, in Douglas, the capital of the Isle of Man. It was happened about 1975 or 76, something like that. And back then, when I was young, my family used to take me to the Isle of Man. I remember being in Summerland a couple of weeks before the fire which consumed the place, and several people were horrifically burnt to death. So there were lessons to be learnt then from the cladding and what was used. And again this time round, absolutely let us learn lessons. Just as in Summerland in 1976, same as in Grenfell 2018. Still tragedies. But I don't remember in Summerland, it wasn't then taken and used as a virtue signalling exercise to attack the government, to attack capitalism, to attack everybody, and to somehow sort of try and set up schisms and race division between people. I think someone's talking about the money that's been thrown at the Grenfell Tower victims. As opposed to, Jed's just put up the link to Summerland. I can remember it so well, being at Summerland back in I think, Jed, what year did this happen? If my memory serves me right, it was 75 or 76. It was horrific. Grenfell Towers was horrific. But what has been just as horrific has been the weaponising of it by those on the political left, in my view, and I think that's shameful. And yes, Frog and Hot Water, it's a bit like Stephen Lawrence Day. It divides communities. Our government is colluding in the division of our communities rather than uniting us. At the end of the day, surely to goodness we can all agree that tragedy is tragedy and everything should be done to help genuine victims. Just in the same way as we should be making sure that lawbreakers such as illegal subletters and illegal immigrants are dealt with firmly. 1971 was it? God, so long ago. I was a very young person back then. But I was there in Summerland a fortnight before the Inferno, so I could have been a victim, I suppose, theoretically. Happily, it didn't happen, but others were. And they were burnt to death in the most hideous manner possible, just like those poor people at Grenfell Towers. Weaponising it, sorry, terrible thing to do. And they are getting away. Jeff's given me the nod that I've got 3 minutes left, so I wanted to make you aware finally of the fact that after much ado, Alt News Media Radio, ANM Radio, formally launches this Friday. Now, There will be apps that you can download on the certainly in Android and hopefully on the Apple iStore, on the Apple Store. You'll be able to download those. So you can, once you've downloaded the app, you'll be able to access A&M Radio directly from your phone. You'll be able to go on and check into our live shows, into our pre-recorded shows, into our podcasts. And there are different shows running throughout the week. I'll have my own show, which will be on a Wednesday. So given the censorship that Twitter put me through here on Periscope, on a Wednesday I'm going to have a 1-hour radio show on A&M Radio. It's called Don't Start Me Talking. I could talk all night. Basically it's going to be a radio version of this. I may be able to do it. I'm not sure if I can do it by video or not, but anyway, it'll be me for an hour discussing political issues. People will be able to message in. I'm not sure if initially you'll be able to do that or not. You may, I'm not sure. I'm absolutely happy for people to call in, message in, whatever. Yes, somebody's got their reference there. My mind's been sleepwalking. I've been putting the world to right for the last 28 minutes. And that's enough referencing to Oliver's Army. Anyway, that should launch this Friday. So I hope you'll find that something worth bookmarking and worth... the thing about it is the site then basically stores all the shows so you can listen anytime. So if you miss a show, it's not a problem. You'll be able to catch it again. And we have podcasts from certain other people as well. So it's going to be hopefully a lot of fun and a good opportunity to diversify ourselves away from the increasing censorious Twitter and the increasingly censorious Periscope. So as I said, there's been a huge amount of work gone into it, and full details will be on my Twitter feed over the next couple of days. Someone says you can talk the ears of a loony left donkey. I probably can. I've probably talked enough. But anyway, as ever, the reason I do these Periscopes, frankly, is because I always enjoy you people coming along. It's you that make it worthwhile for me. So thanks for your hearts tonight. Thank you for the kind super hearts. Thanks for all your funny comments and your wise comments as well. And I hope you'll be able to tune in to A&M Radio Thursday.